You're watching ChillyBoy Productions. I'm Larry ChillyBoy Chilson, and this is the latest in my Pride series of movie reviews. And today we have The Watermelon Woman. Now,
Ooh.
as usual with these reviews, I am joined by a fellow film nerd, another film tuber in this case, Elliott from Hakuna MaChatter. Hi, Elliott.
Hello, Larry. Hello, everybody watching. Hope you're doing very well. I'm excited to talk about this film.
Thank you, first of all, for joining me and coming on this Pride season to discuss an LGBTQ film from the
Mm,
past. And today it is a bit of a special one because it's credited as like the first film directed by an out lesbian Black woman. She also wrote the film as well as star
mm.
in it. Miss Cheryl Dunier does it all. But The Watermelon Woman is a 1996 romantic comedy drama about a young woman who is working in a video store while she is compiling information on a mysterious Black uncredited actress from the 30s known as the Watermelon Woman. So
Ooh.
this was actually my first time seeing the film for this review. Actually, this Pride Month has been a lot of films I had not watched previously, so it's been pretty
Yeah.
fun for me as well. How about you? Is this the first time you had really seen or heard of this film?
Yeah. First time I'd seen it, and also first time I'd heard of it. I'd never heard of this film before, and it's crazy how projects like this do just get lost to time sometimes. But it's
Like,
one I'm glad I've watched now, actually. I think there's a lot in there that's quite important and quite relevant to the way we talk about representation nowadays as well.
yeah, and it's certainly a unique film for the 90s. But it has actually recently been put into the US National Film Registry by the Library of Congress for being culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. So, quite an achievement for a film that had like a $30,000 budget, very small budgeted, or 300,000, I guess. That's my bad. $300,000, which is still astronomically small. Part of the
Yeah.
production was that she couldn't get the licensing money to get some of these clips and some of this documentary footage. So
Mm,
she herself and other people just kind of recreated it um, to give it the
yeah.
kind of it needed in her vision. How did you feel about this pseudo documentary style of storytelling that is taking place here?
Yeah. So, I mean, I actually found that the documentary style stuff was easily the strongest parts of the film. I was trying to do a bit of research, but I couldn't, and I've not really honestly had time to do a lot. The Watermelon Woman herself, it's fictional, right? She's made up. It wasn't a real person. Am I correct in saying that?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, from my understanding. So, and I think that's what struck me even more, if that's the case, because it felt very real. It felt very that this searching for this person, that she was searching for a real person, and these parts of the film were actually just very genuine. Cheryl just filming what was going on with what she was doing at the time. So those parts were great. I think then it's then interspersed with scenes of dialogue between characters, and those bits kind of fall apart a little bit in terms of the dialogue and in terms of direction. However, I do have a lot of positive to say about that, which I will dive into a little bit more. But that's just my general thoughts and feelings to start with.
Yeah, it certainly was used as a spotlight just in general
Yeah.
on how Black actors were treated in
Mm,
non-Black films coming up through classic Hollywood. Because
yeah.
even though it was a very fictionalized telling of this case, she definitely meant for it to shine a spotlight on the fact that we have all these uncredited actors and actresses
Yeah.
from the classic cinema who were in these starring roles and were never even given name credit It's honestly just astonishing that we went that long. This was made in 1996, and just all of
Mm,
these decades later, still trying to uncover history for a lot of
yeah.
groups worldwide, but obviously specifically in the United States when it comes to this film.
Yeah, I mean, as I've kind of said, I really enjoyed. I think really what the film was trying to do. That, as you say, it was trying to spotlight these things or these people that are forgotten, and not just with the documentary, not with just the searching for the watermelon woman. I think and also Cheryl taking with the acted dialogue scenes, in the video store and around coffee tables and whatnot. I kind of feel that, you know, she was also voicing something else that was very near and dear to her. So you've got this, in terms of having black women front and center, having gay women front and center in a film in the 90s. And then yeah, unearthing and uncovering history, or showing people the paths you can go down to do that. I think for that, it's a film I will champion because it's trying to do different things, and especially at that time, it's really trying to do different things.
I think we'd be hard pressed even now to name off too many queer black female
Mm,
directors and
yeah.
prominent writers. I mean, there's certainly a few more that have come to prominence, writers specifically, more so
Mm,
than directors by and large. But we're still not getting like a floodgate of, of
no.
this type
No.
of thing opening. And even when it comes to lesbian cinema, we're not seeing a whole lot of color there. Queer cinema at large, actually, it's not even just relegated to the lesbian subgenre. Really,
Mm,
gay anything is trans experience. We have one or two, we get like a Tangerine, but that's more of the outlier. Do you remember the days of going back into the little video store to get your VHS tape?
oh yeah, dude. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. We Blockbuster reached the UK as well, man. We know it. We know it truly.
Now, I don't think either of us were quite old enough to like be picking people up at the Blockbuster.
No, no.
How did you like her relationships here, whether it be with,
Mm,
the white woman that she gets somewhat criticized for by her friend, or her friendship,
mm.
and how those interpersonal relationships were depicted?
I think it was really interesting. I actually really enjoyed the relationship and the build up of that relationship, her relationship with Diana. Yeah, because I think what I really enjoyed about it was I think it was that initial meeting in the video store, and just how Diana is she's not afraid, she's not scared, she's got confidence, she knows who she is. And she takes a fancy to Charlotte, and what's great is that you can see then the counter in that, and that Cheryl also takes fancy instantly, but is very shy and nervous and is like, no, I've got to be focusing on this project, but then allows Diana in eventually. Sure, it doesn't all quite work out by the end of the film, but I still think that sometimes relationships are just fleeting. So I think it was quite real in that respect, that it burned hot and bright very quickly. And that was kind of it. It was a passing fancy, and these are two characters where they were in it for maybe a lustful side, but not necessarily a loving side. And I thought that was just quite nice. It kind of moves away from a classic Hollywood fairy tale fantasy relationship and just kind of earthed it a bit more. And then the relationship with the friend, it's a little bit tropey because the friend is pretty, sassy black woman in a way. I think it was fun, again, like bounce off of each other really well. They have very different energies. And so, it allows variety within the film, variety of characters and variety of interactions. And I just love the nuisance that the friend commits. She's just her. She's 100% her 100% of the time. She's not going to let anyone get in her way. And if she feels someone's being rude, she tells them. And that's cool.
I do love that we got a lot of different depictions, I think, especially for a 90s film of
Yeah.
lesbians.
Yeah.
They all felt pretty authentic too. That's what you get, I guess, especially when you star in the film you wrote and directed. But when you have a lesbian writer and director, there wasn't this weird sexualization. We do have a sex scene in here. It
Yeah.
gets steamy, but it certainly is not what we're used to seeing, like blue is the warmest color
Yeah.
style female on female sex scene. There are some very eccentric women that are
Yeah.
that they date in this movie.
To
You're
say the
like,
least.
okay. So I just think I love that we got this really broad spectrum. They call this library the clit. This like league of like lesbian history. I
Yeah.
thought it was really funny, this library
Yeah.
of lesbian history. I also think it brought up a lot of interesting points, specifically about race, because I think the film obviously is pushing as much about race as it is about
Yes.
sexuality. That's obviously her entire mission. Doesn't start off
Yeah.
having anything to do with sexuality. Along the way, she finds out that the watermelon woman was in a lesbian relationship, or was a lesbian,
Mm.
because I think she was in two, that we learn. But initially, it is to give respect to these Black actresses who didn't, get the respect they were due.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed a lot of the kind of conversations that happened between her and her friend, and then that girlfriend of her friend that was
Mm.
kind of there
Yes.
too. And a really juxtaposing position that I think it still takes place actually quite often when it comes to Black history debates and
Mm.
different type of viewpoints on how to handle things, and how to who to date, who to bring
Mm.
into circles, who should be working on these projects. At one point we even have this like white woman scholar who's talking to the camera about
Yeah.
tropes and her viewpoint on tropes. So I thought it really delved into a lot of those topics in a pretty straightforward way, and
Mm.
quite an
Mm.
interesting way to me. Did you have any input on that?
Yeah, and I think what was also really nice along with it is that everything was intersectional. It never felt like they were ever dealing with one issue at a time
Mhm.
because, people aren't just one
Yeah.
thing. There's many things that make up our identities and or that we choose to make up our identity. I think that was a great thing that the film handled, and especially once it delved into the relationship that the watermelon woman had, she wasn't just shunned and she wasn't just sort of hidden away because of her race. She was hidden away also because of her sexuality as well. And yeah, it was interesting to see that it was 2 points that she was being hit at, but at the same time, it never stopped her doing anything as well. Really, she was always kind of going to these parties and these being in these films along with the director that she was in a relationship and was working with. So I thought that was really interesting, and I really like you picking up there on the professor that they speak to, the white one professor, because the way that she speaks about it was really interesting, and that everything was very much, yeah, you're talking about tropes and stuff, but she talks about it, yeah, very matter of fact, very well. This is the way it is because that's the way it's got to be because that was society and that was life, and yeah, it's interesting how she kind of like treads that wire of not wanting to be offensive, but is almost really highly offensive at times, especially by today's standards, at least. Anyway, so yeah, she was a very good counterpoint in all of it because I think she offered a pathway, but still closed off because this is how things have been done, so they must be done this way still. And I really enjoyed that character and bringing that character in, especially at the point in the film as well, because it was a bit later on in the film. It's kind of once we've already unearthed quite a bit of everything that was going on, and then suddenly it's like, oh, now we're getting put 2 feet under again.
Yeah. In many respects, it actually made me think back to like Ma Rainey's Black Bottom and Ma Rainey as
Mm,
a human. Another character who, by that day's standard, was actually, a decently wealthy woman. She was a very successful woman,
Mm.
and pretty much she just lived how she wanted to live. And she was not all that shy, because it was in the history books, about her sexual identity either. But, and I just talked about the film Orlando as my last review, and
Mm.
it was based on a bisexual woman that Virginia Woolf had a relationship with. So
Right.
it's all just interesting, as finally, this took place a while ago, and as we talked about, is a more fictionalized account. But as we continue to just unearth all of these people who have been here this whole time, imagine that, as we really look at history in any field, but certainly in the entertainment industry,
Yeah. Yeah.
you start to really unearth the history, that it was a lot more than just white men, white straight men, white women, and white straight women
Mhm.
doing
Mhm.
these things throughout all of this. And that was just a thing that made me think. There's something I've been thinking about a lot recently with all of these
Yeah.
projects coming
Yeah.
out, about, oh, we're getting a lot more information about folks that we didn't have before. But also, you see, even with that friend who is like still in denial about it, however many years later, it's like, about, oh no, my sister
Yeah.
wasn't involved in all that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just kind of, I thought that was a kind of a fun play on how these things do get swept under the rug, or are hidden for so
Mhm.
long, because the people who are in the know, try to hide it, or are ashamed, or whatever the case
Yeah.
might be.
Yeah. Yeah.
But do you have any other thoughts or opinions when it comes to the watermelon woman?
Yeah, I really do. And I think, especially when you look at to where Joel's career has gone post this film, and this is the thing I think that impresses me the most about this film, because, you know, by the standards of filmmaking that certainly our generation is used to, I mean, it really is an independent, low budget film made in the 90s. Its look, its feel, the way it's edited, all of it. Like, it's like when I stuck it on, I was like, God, wow, okay, I didn't expect this to be that low budget. I mean, but obviously, of course, it was in the 90s because of what it was about. But I think for me, that's the most impressive thing. I straight away after the film looked up Cheryl's IMDb page, and I've got it up here. So just so I can read directing credits she's had since then. So since The Watermelon Woman, some of the big things she's directed include Dear White People, Queen Sugar, Lovecraft Country, Why the Last Man, Bridgerton. She's been directing episodes in all of these projects. And I just think what impresses me the most is that just do it. If you have something to say, just do it and say it and make that film, make that TV show, make that piece of music, paint that painting, whatever it is. If you've got a creative vision, you have to do it, because you never know where it's going to lead. You look at The Watermelon Woman and you don't think that 30 years down the line, you're directing an episode of Bridgerton, one of the most successful TV shows of all time in terms of viewership anyway. I think that's quite outstanding, really. And feel that, especially if you are a marginalized voice as well, it feels double that weight, and it can do. And when I filled out my letterbox for Watermelon Woman, I straight away hit the 4 stars, and most of it was based off of just making that film. To even start with, to just go, we don't have the biggest budget, we don't have uh all the equipment we might need, and the skills we might need, but that's not going to stop us making it, because who knows where it's going to project us to. Even if it doesn't, hey, we made it. Pat on the back, us.
And I think, honestly, speaking for myself, I think if you are from a marginalized voice, it's even double for me to
Yeah.
say make it. I don't care if
Mm.
it's a chintzy mess or whatever. Make that project, because
Yeah.
those voices need to continue to be pushed up and outward, and they don't get to even have that shot if you don't just make it and make the project, make it about what you're passionate about, because that's
Yeah,
exactly what this film was a
yeah,
passion project, something she was really interested in and wanting to do research on, period, and kind of brought along a narrative with that to create it. And
yeah,
now
yeah, yeah,
most of those projects that you just listed off, they have black leads, and they
yeah,
have
yeah,
quite diverse casts, and
yeah,
clearly, she has become at least a voice within that space, and continues to work on some fantastic projects under some of
mm,
the biggest brands and biggest productions out there. I know she has her own smaller production company as well, Jingletown
yeah, right.
Films. But if you are interested in checking out The Watermelon Woman, I know it is part of the Criterion channel. So if you're a big film buff person and have that Criterion channel subscription already, you can
Yeah.
certainly check it out there.
Here in the UK, I was able to watch it on Mubi. So if there are any UK viewers and you have Mubi, that's where I found it in the end. Which you can also access through Amazon, but you have to get a Mubi subscription through. I don't know, just go to Mubi, or if it is on Criterion here in the UK as well, check it out there.
But yes,
Mm.
definitely check out The Watermelon Woman. It is kind of a landmark in queer cinema. As I said, the very first film that was directed by an openly Black lesbian woman, and that in and of itself deserves celebration and praise, and will keep it in the queer and non-queer cinema history books moving forward. So as you wrap up your 2022 Pride celebrations, or look to add stuff to your Pride watch list moving forward, I think this is an important one to at least seek out and see it at least one time. So, once again, Elliott, thank you so much for joining me. Do you want to let people
Thank you.
know where they can find you and follow you across the internet?
Yes. Thank you very much. Yes, so on YouTube, I am Hakuna MaChatter. You'll notice the channel's been on a slight hiatus if you are visiting straight away, but don't worry, I am gearing myself to come back. As I say, if you've got something to say, you've got to use your voice and say it. And so I'm gearing myself back up, and definitely videos will be coming soon. If not, I am still, well, no, they will be. But if you can't wait to interact with me before then, I'm still very active on Twitter under Hakuna Matata. So do come and check me out there as well. And you can also find me on Instagram under the same name.
Perfect. And if you enjoyed this review, make sure to go ahead and click that subscribe button down below so that you can chill with me on each and every one of my latest videos. Also, hit that like button down below and comment. Have you seen The Watermelon Woman? If you have, what are your thoughts on the film? I love you all so much for your continued support. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.